Imagine you are running a company with 10,000 employees. Every employee has a unique name. And now imagine that you are calling everyone just person. Impossible, right? Programming has exactly same problem. If we don't give names to our data, Python won't know which value we are talking about. That's why today we are going to learn one of the most important concept in Python is variables. And trust me, without variables, you cannot build data analytics projects, machine learning models, or even write a simple Python program. So let's understand it in the easiest way possible. So what exactly a variable? Think of a variable as a labeled box, and inside the box you can store something. It could be person's name, age, salary, city, or even millions of rows of data. In Python, a simple variable means that you are referring to a value which can be stored in that variable, right? Okay. And instead of remembering the value itself, we remember its name. For example, instead of writing Prabjot again and again, we can simply store in a variable called name and we can use it anywhere in our program. In simple words, variables are those labels that can point to values and that makes our code easier to write, understand and reuse. But the point is, why do we need variables? You might ask that why not just write the values directly? I can repeat the values for a number of times in the program. I can use it anywhere. Great question, right? But let's understand with the help of an example. Imagine that calculating the month's sales of a company. The total sale is, let's suppose, 20 lakhs. If you write this number everywhere, what happens when the sales changes next month? You have to replace every occurrence of that number manually. And instead of that, we will be doing, we will be using variables. That is the reason we want to create a variable, right? And in that variable, we would like to store the data. Okay. Now this is a number, this is a variable which has a number stored. Now whenever sale changes, you only update one line and everything else update automatically. So variables make program more flexible, more readable and much easier to maintain. Now let's learn how Python store values. So Python uses assignment operator that we have just used here is equals to in order to assign a value. Now don't confuse it with mathematics. Here it does not mean it is equal to. It means we are storing the value on the right hand side, on the right inside the variable which is on the left, right? Okay, so the value which is on the right, that we are storing inside the variable on the left. Similarly, I can also define the variable name as student, okay, and write here the name of the student, right? Let's suppose I'll write here is Prabjot. I want to store the age. Let's suppose I'll store the age and I'll write here a number 20 and assign it to the variable. So Python stores this text Prabjot inside the variable student and store the number 19 inside the variable age. Now wherever we use, whenever we are going to use that, we will just print that value, as simple as that. I need not to type Prabjot again and again. I can just print this variable anywhere, right? So similarly, we can also print the age also, right? And even if you want to print it this way, you can also print it both in a single line, right? We just have to use it as a comma and giving the name of two variables. So let's now understand how variables are used in data analytics. Let's suppose I'll be defining here a variable with the name product and I'll write here, let's suppose I have a product with the name laptop, right? Price of the laptop I'll assign, let's suppose 60,000, okay? And I'll say quantity I'll define equals to let's suppose 8 I define, right? Now suppose you want to calculate revenue. So how you calculate revenue? The total number of quantities multiplied by the price. So for that, what I need to do? I'll be using here is operator, arithmetic operator, multiplication we say that, and we multiply both of this and we get the answer. But I have not stored it anywhere. That means if I have to use anywhere in the entire program, I again have to do this price into quantity, price into quantity. But instead of that, I can just define a variable and I can store in that revenue. So wherever I want to now use it, I'll need not to create this operation again and again, price into quantity. I can just print this value, right? So see how simple it becomes, right? Instead of typing numbers, we store them in variables and perform calculations easily, and that's what exactly data analysts do every day when we have to store the data. Now, very important thing, how should we name variables? Python follows a very simple rule. Rule number one, variable can contains alphabets, numbers, underscores. For example, if I want to say that, okay, I want to define a variable total sales, I can define total underscore sales also. It's a valid name. Okay. If let's suppose somebody says that, okay, I want to define which will have a number also, right? Let's suppose I'll say here is T1 equals to 30. You see, it is allowed, right? That means variables can contain letters, numbers, and it can even have underscore also, right? But rule number two, that there is no space allowed. For example, I want to define the total sale variable equals to this way, right? And I'm giving a space in between variable. No, it's not allowed. You see, syntax error. Okay, so no spaces are allowed here, right? And so what is the correct thing? We can use a underscore, right? Or even we can't, even if we don't want to, that's also totally fine. We can just define it with this way also, right? Okay, so I can remove that space and now you see it's all good, right? But I just mentioned that variable can have alphabets and numbers also, but can we start with a number? If I'll say that this way, no. Okay, so variables cannot start with a number, right? That is very, very important.